Baltimore City cited for non-compliance by the EPA, what they failed to do, and the 3 actions they need to take to become compliant and ensure you have safe drinking water. Doctors on the front lines fighting to save young lives speak out.
What's more disturbing is the number of kids that are dying as a result of gunshot.
What they say needs to change to protect the people of Baltimore. Plus, we question if the governor would be willing to call a special session to address the violence. Then we're live at Pimlico looking at the horses with Maryland ties running in the Preakness.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
We have breaking news now at 4. Baltimore County Public Schools officially has a new superintendent. The state superintendent approving the appointment of Dr. Miriam Yarbrough. Her appointment comes after current superintendent Dr. Darrell Williams announced he is not renewing his contract. Dr. Yarbrough's 4-year contract begins on July 1st.
It is a real hazard, and we need to straighten this thing out right away. And there's no reason why it should have taken this long.
Well, some Baltimoreans are calling on the city to finish a project years in the making. Their demands come as the federal government orders Baltimore City to comply after several delays. And this follows a state report on how city leaders notified residents of E. coli contamination last summer. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Maxine Stryker in for Mary tonight. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost explains the concerns from community members and how the city is responding.
The construction around Lake Ashburton continues as the city continues installing drinking water tanks buried underground. The $137 million plan scheduled to wrap up in winter of 2022, all to comply with the federal safe drinking water laws. But that plan delayed. A similar project underway here at Druid Hill Park, where outdated signs provide timeline projections for completion. The Environmental Protection Agency issuing this order to the city for violating federal law.
Well, I don't think it's been going very well.
The letter outlining blown deadlines for years. Lawrence Bell, former city council president,
We're very concerned about it. We don't know why it's taking so long.
has been active in the community conversation for both projects.
Well, I think it's poor management on all levels.
The projects come with other upgrades to the surrounding parks too, which Bell says could be part of the problem.
There are people who exploited the requirements by EPA to do a lot of other things. And that may be one of the reasons why this thing is taking so long.
The EPA orders the city to finish the tank projects by the end of this year, also ordering the city to find a lab to complete water testing for Giardia and other parasites until drinking water tanks are online. This project delay and renewed focus on drinking water testing isn't the first time that Baltimore City has faced questions surrounding safe drinking water. 8 months ago, there was an E. coli outbreak taking place right here in front of this fire station, leading to thousands of residents who were unable to drink their water.
I was sitting right in the doorway looking at it, and they didn't do anything for about 4 or 5 hours.
This man lives near the fire station in West Baltimore, but doesn't want to show his face. He remembers the E. coli outbreak and the subsequent botched communication from the city. 8 months later, he still doesn't trust the city's water.
I buy bottled water and I filter my water.
The water in West Baltimore rendered unsafe last Labor Day weekend.
I got it. I'll put it right up there. You know what, brother? Okay. How you doing? How you doing, buddy?
The city opening water distribution sites for days. Despite city leaders maintaining they followed the law when it comes to notifying the public fast enough,
DPW has been in total compliance with EPA and MDE guidelines regarding notifications.
Communication seemed to be bungled. How do you plan to make sure that the community sees that someone is held accountable for this?
So again, Mackenzie, there was no misbundling of communication.
What matters is what the Department of MDE has said, and they said that we follow their protocols to a T.
MDE did not say that you guys followed it by a T. A Fox 45 News investigation revealing the city waited to tell the impacted community their water may not be safe to drink. And months later, Fox 45 News uncovering a memo the Maryland Department of Environment sent to city leaders confirming that violation. Now the EPA giving the city a step-by-step plan to come into compliance. DPW telling Fox 45 News the pandemic and supply chain issues caused many of the delays, and both projects should begin functional and operational use by December 30th, 2023, barring unforeseen delays. If that doesn't happen, Bell says the federal government should not be lenient.
I think they need to come down hard on the city hierarchy.
The mayor's office ignoring questions for 2 days about the latest order from the EPA. Meanwhile, the city ordered to notify the public of these latest violations. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Fox 45 News has questioned city leaders on the quality of drinking water. You can find more on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Breaking overnight, an 18-year-old boy was shot in North Baltimore. The teen took himself to the hospital and was treated for injuries that are not life-threatening. That teen joins 224 others who have survived shootings this year in Baltimore City. Right now, the city has recorded 103 homicides. Both shootings and homicides are down from this point last year, though. Comparing numbers from the past 8 years show that Baltimore could once again hit 300 murders in 2023. And tonight we continue our coverage with doctors on the front line of the crime crisis. This year, they're sounding the alarm as more young people become the faces of crime and violence. For children growing up in Baltimore City,
At the top stories we're following from the
Carry illegal firearms in our
violence can be a part of everyday life.
Living in a city where violence is rampant is considered an adverse childhood experience.
This year, as juvenile violence spikes in the city, no one is more intimately familiar with the pain and suffering of children than those on the front lines. Dr. Thomas Scalea, Chief of Shock Trauma, Dr. Stephen Zinn, Director of the University of Maryland Children's Hospital, and Dr. Rebecca Carter, a leading pediatrician at the University of Maryland Medical Center, sitting down with us for an honest conversation. Last year you said that you and your staff were feeling beaten down. Are you still feeling that way?
Absolutely. It's just so discouraging, the violence in general. You know, you can fix distracted driving and all of those things, and there will still be vehicular crashes because there's human error, there's weather, there's all of those things. But I don't know where it's written down that you have to pick up a gun and shoot somebody. That doesn't have to be. And so this is, as far as I'm concerned, these are 100% preventable injuries.
Well, I think we haven't seen a change, but I think what's more disturbing is the number of kids that are either dying as a result of gunshot or being injured as a result of a gunshot.
This year, 10 children have been killed in Baltimore City. Why do you think Baltimore children feel that violence is often the answer?
I think that it really speaks to the normalization of violence in the city. And this is maybe a little off topic, but what other city has the major newspaper report homicides every week? I've never, when I got here, I said, this, really? If you look at the homicides, the day that Freddie Gray died, and they've never come back now.
With bloodshed ingrained into the fabric of Baltimore, the doctors agree everyone has an obligation to make a difference in this fight.
This isn't a political fight. It's not a medical fight or set of issues. It's about the health of the public in Baltimore, and this is a huge problem for those people, for the citizens of the city, and the conversations need to be driven in with that framework. You know.
Well, another important topic we discussed with the doctors was their part in a national campaign, It Doesn't Kill to Ask. That campaign focuses on destigmatizing the conversation about guns and their safe storage.
We have a lot of hesitancy about asking about where guns are stored, how they're stored, how do we keep them out of the hands of young adults and certainly out of children. And I think this is a conversation that everybody should be a lot more open to having in the coming weeks and months if we're going to start to make a difference.
To see my full 30-minute interview with Doctors Carter, Scalea, and Zinn, just point your phone's camera right now at that QR code on your screen, or you can go to our webpage at foxbaltimore.com.
Next week, the Baltimore City Council will hold a hearing on the youth curfew. The mayor wants to enforce a summer curfew to reduce the number of young people becoming victims and suspects of crimes. In Annapolis, lawmakers have wrapped up their work for the year without taking action on youth crime. Rebecca Pryor asked the governor if lawmakers should return for a special session. Rebecca, what did he say?
Well, he did ask if returning for a special session was an option, but today the governor's office refusing to say if it's something he's considering. Take a look. This morning, I sent his office questions asking. Doctors from the University of Maryland Shock Trauma Center are pleading for a solution to this soaring youth crime crisis. What is your response to these doctors' concerns? Will you call a special session to address juvenile violence? And if not, what is your message to families who have lost children to gun violence this year? His office not directly answering any of my questions today. Instead, Governor Moore's team resent a press release from earlier this week. This as parents and now doctors are begging for new solutions.
They need to take stronger action in order to deal with this problem, whether it is finding a way to get more of these guns off the streets or tougher penalties to deal with this type of thing. But they definitely need to get more involved in this than to wait another 9 months before another session comes.
Meanwhile, other states are calling special sessions for issues surrounding gun reform and drug abuse. I'll have more on that coming up at 5, as well as more on Governor Moore's response. But for now, reporting live in Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. That brings us to our question of the day. Should there be a special legislative session in Annapolis to tackle the juvenile crime crisis? So far, 86% of those who voted say yes. You can head to foxbaltimore.com/vote and click on the Pulse tab to weigh in.
Whistleblowers testifying before Congress say the FBI retaliated against them. Republican Representative Jim Jordan leads the subcommittee Weaponization of the Federal Government. One of the witnesses before the subcommittee today was former FBI operations specialist Marcus Allen. He says the agency retaliated against him for forwarding information questioning the official narrative of the events of January 6th. We have a full report from Washington coming up in less than 10 minutes.
He's standing in front of Harford County citizens and saying, I'm going to have to raise taxes. It's a lie.
Harford County's executive is being criticized for his proposed budget. Bob Casserly will join us live in about 20 minutes with the new agreement for schools and lingering concerns.
There is a level that's going to impair, but there's also a level that's not impairing.
Well, how high is too high to drive? A look at how law enforcement is being trained to spot impaired drivers as Maryland gets ready to legalize recreational marijuana.
And this is Preakness Week in Baltimore as race day quickly approaches. The final preparations underway.
All the traditions, and actually as we head into our Preakness Week, we're entering a moderate drought in portions of Anne Arundel County. Abnormally dry for a lot of the rest of the 95 corridor. I'm going to let you know when we could have some rain and if it's going to impact your Preakness plans in my Weather Authority forecast.
Hey, Preakness Weekend gets underway tomorrow with the Black-Eyed Susan Stakes. Now, today, the making of that special blanket for tomorrow's winner took place. This was at the Giant Food at York Road Plaza. This blanket will drape the winner of tomorrow's race. It's made up of nearly 2,000 flowers and takes 5 floors, basically roughly 8 hours to complete. Isn't it pretty?
I'm touching a piece of history when I make that. I get goosebumps when I talk about it. It's really kind of cool. It's seen all over the world. It's pride in our city.
Yeah, really cool. Well, the team will also make the blanket for the winner of the Preakness Stakes. That's on Saturday. And we'll have more on this coming up in the next hour.
I always love seeing that. It's really
cool, isn't it? Yeah. Well, this year, Maryland will also have some hometown ties on race day.
Rocco DeSangro live at Pimlico, and it's the eve before the big day. Rocco, I know you're excited.
Yeah, guys, I absolutely am. I missed this last year here at Pimlico. Got here a little late, but this year I am so amped. As should all of you. It is a big week, the biggest week here at Pimlico. Friday, you guys touched on it. It is the Black-Eyed Susan Stakes. That's where the 3-year-old fillies run. And then on Saturday, you got the big one. That is Preakness 148. And if you're looking for a few horses to maybe root for in this one, I have a few for you with some Maryland ties. Let's start off with Coffee with Chris, who is based out of Laurel. That was the final horse to arrive ahead of the big day. And unlike last year, the Kentucky Derby winner will be running in the Preakness. That's Mage, who was actually purchased at an auction in Timonium. Although it was a quick 2-week turnaround in between races, Mage is certainly ready to roll.
This is what we dream of. No the recognition, no like getting famous, no about that. It's about winning the race. Now that we have won it, of course, we understand that with that kind of success, there's other stuff coming together with that. Every horse is gonna have a decent shot to, and hopefully the best wins.
And if Mage does pull out a win here at the Preakness, Mage will become the first winner of the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness since Justify back in 2018. Post time here at Pimlico on Saturday for Preakness 148. That is set for 6:50. For now, live at Pimlico, Rocco DeSangro for Sports Unlimited.
All right, thank you, Rocco. And you have one more day to get free tickets from the Fox 45 morning team each hour from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. tomorrow. One lucky winner will get 4 all-day general admission passes, including the Preakness Live concert lineup headlined by Bruno Mars. Be a good show.
It will be a very good show. The Preakness brings tens of thousands of people to Baltimore on Saturday, and those racing fans will spend money.
Of course. Fox 45's Amy Simpson explores what this weekend means for tourism in the Baltimore region.
The lineup is set. The Kentucky Derby winner expected to race. Mage even spotted out on the track this morning. And racing fans are prepping their best outfits ahead of the second jewel of the Triple Crown at Pimlico this weekend.
I think the crab cake consumption during Preakness week is probably triple a normal weekend in Maryland, so it's got a huge economic impact and a lot of people exposed to Baltimore that they don't really know.
But it's not just Marylanders making their way to the Preakness Stakes.
The event itself it not only brings people from around this region and around the country.
It's the horses too.
And those horses all come with employees and the trainers and the connections who spend their time and money in hotels and restaurants all around the area.
The executive vice chairman of First Racing and Gaming says another draw for the event is this year's headliner of concerts on Pimlico's infield.
The reception to the Bruno Mars event has been very positive, and I think we're going to have a great day.
Infield Fest was canceled in 2020 and 2021 during the pandemic. The horse race itself pushed back all the way until October in 2020. And attendance showed COVID's toll. These numbers shared by event organizers with an attendance of 0 the year the pandemic shut down the world. By last year, in May 2022, a reported crowd of 42,000 on site at Pimlico, roughly the size of the Preakness crowds reported back in the late 60s and early 70s. Event organizers likely hoping for a big return this year.
We're really happy with our ticket sales compared to last year. We're running a little bit up on those.
The largest crowd ever recorded for Preakness, 140,000 for Preakness in 2017.
But now that the pandemic is officially over, that life has returned to some semblance of normalcy, people are spending less on goods in many cases and more on experiences.
With COVID in the rear view, this Baltimore economist estimates the impact of Preakness could mean about $50 million for the greater Baltimore region and state this year.
A lot of interest this year. Again, there's this focus among many people that they want to have more experiences. This is the second jewel of the Triple Crown, and we have the Kentucky Derby winner racing in this race, so that adds to the intrigue. And so I think you are going to see a lot of people there.
Showing how critical the event is to the local economy.
And this is our Super Bowl every year.
Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Well, the big question now is it going to be nice out, right?
Yeah, you know, very exciting. We just need some good
crossed.
weather, right? And, I mean, we've had highs in the 90s. We've had highs in the 50s in the past. We've had lows in the 30s. We've had rain and muddy tracks. And this year, I don't expect really any of those. So, yeah, I think we're splitting all the differences and we're going to be okay. Not going to be a perfect day temperature-wise and rain-wise. Well, temperature-wise, not bad, but rain-wise, there could be a little bit, but it doesn't look like it's going to be anything to alter plans over. 68 right now, Toyota Asian Harbor Skycamp. Just a gorgeous day once again. Only 69 for a high temperature. Should be in the mid-70s for this time of year. East-southeast winds at 7 miles an hour. Humidity and dew point showing dry levels of moisture in the air, so it is a comfortable day. 68 Baltimore, 68 natural air conditioning in Cockeysville, 72 at Westminster. We've got a 72 there at Frederick and near 70 on the eastern shore. Widen out some clouds that are out west and south of the city. You see there right around Westminster. Sunshine breaks back out, though, toward La Plata as well as North Beach. Some temperatures only in the low to mid 60s near the water. Some of those clouds I showed you associated with all this mess down to the south. Look at all the rain and thunderstorms that arcs all the way back into the Intermountain West. I think we are going to start seeing some of this close in and move back to the north once again after the clear and gorgeous weather that we've had, the cooler weather that we've had. Another nice overnight. We'll see temperatures as the clouds increase a little bit, falling down into the low to mid 50s, better than the 40s we woke up to this morning. Then during the day tomorrow, clouds continue to thicken a little bit. We'll call it partly to mostly cloudy for black-eyed Susan Day. High temperatures probably about 70 degrees. And then as we head into the big day on Saturday, our computer model kind of ends here in the early afternoon. But you get the picture. Some extra clouds. There could be a stray shower. There's heavier rain to our east, heavier rain to our west. And it looks like we really kind of get missed out on a lot of that. So it's about a 30, maybe 40% chance of some light showers around. So, again, nothing to really cancel your plans. You put on that big fascinator, should keep you nice and dry. 74 on Friday for black-eyed Susan Day, dry day there. Slim chance of some spotty showers around, light stuff on Saturday, 77. Back to near 80 and sun on Sunday, and it looks like no rain, no help for that building possible moderate drought as we head into early next week.
Well, how high is too high to drive? We take you to a training session for officers learning how to spot impaired drivers as recreational marijuana becomes legal in Maryland. A young girl has died in the custody of Border Patrol. What U.S. officials say happened.
I'm Christine Frizzau on Capitol Hill, where 3 former FBI employees say they were punished simply for speaking out.
Developing tonight, an 8-year-old girl has died in Border Patrol custody. We're told the girl and her family were being held at a station in the Rio Grande Valley in Texas. Border officials say she had a medical emergency and was taken to the hospital where she died. Customs and Border Protection will now investigate. On Capitol Hill today, though, House Republicans bringing in former FBI agents they call whistleblowers to tell their stories of political bias and retaliation. As Christine Frizzell reports, Democrats making the case the hearing itself was politically motivated.
On Capitol Hill, Republicans working to paint a picture of a modern-day society saturated in spying.
If you are a parent and you attend a school board meeting, there could be an FBI agent in the parking lot scribbling down your license plate number.
GOP lawmakers on the new subcommittee, which focuses on the weaponization of the federal government, focused squarely on the FBI, a mission Democrats say was handed down by former President Donald Trump.
My colleagues on the far right are on a mission to attack, discredit, and ultimately dismantle the FBI.
Witnesses, called whistleblowers by Republicans, say the FBI retaliated against them for speaking out about political bias and mishandled cases.
The FBI denied my request to seek outside employment.
Operations specialist Marcus Allen said he was accused of holding conspiratorial views simply for questioning what the FBI was initially told about the January 6th attack at the U.S. Capitol.
The FBI suspended my security clearance, accusing me of actually being disloyal.
Democrats insist the witnesses are not whistleblowers, but disgruntled employees with their own political motivations.
Since being rightly suspended, you've led Republican calls to defund law enforcement, recently describing the FBI as a feckless garbage institution.
But Republicans say they've spoken to more than 24 whistleblowers who provided multiple examples of what they call weaponization, including orders to prioritize January 6th investigations over child sex crime cases, plans to infiltrate and develop sources inside Catholic churches and school board meetings, and which retaliated against employees who spoke out.
They suspended you, they took your pay, they don't let you get health insurance, they made life miserable for you to send a message.
This hearing comes the same week Special Counsel John Durham wrapped up his investigation, concluding the FBI can be politically motivated, and launched that probe looking into connections between the Trump campaign and Russia based on, quote, no predicate and no probable cause. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzell.
It's an unacceptable budget. A nice way to describe it would be a train wreck right now.
Strong words from the Harford County Sheriff about this year's proposed budget. County Executive Bob Castley is standing by live to discuss the concerns, and he has big news concerning an agreement with Harford County schools.
Consumer spending is slowing down, but that's not the only challenge retailers are facing. I'm Atrell Nashar, and coming up, which store says organized theft could cost them hundreds of millions of dollars?
I'm not 100% sure. We absolutely have an answer for it, and that's why we continue to do this.
And next, we give you a look inside as officers learn how to spot drivers who are too high to be on the road. All of this as Maryland gets ready to legalize recreational marijuana. Well, new developments in the fight over a proposed budget in Harford County.
An agreement has been reached between the county executive's office and the school system. Joining us live is County Executive Bob Casserly. County Executive, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Good to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Can you walk us through the agreement and how the school system's needs are being met without having to resort to a tax increase, which you said would have to happen?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. So I'm very dedicated to our schools, and I got a lot of friends and relatives in teaching, and my grandkids attend the schools as well. And I knew coming into this, we've got to pay our teachers a fair wage, and we've got to support them with discipline in our schools so they have a good teaching environment. And we had a intense budget debate in Harford County, and that's true Harford County fashion. We like to engage in open and intense debate on issues, including education funding. And when that debate was done, and all the cards were on the table, we sat down as mature adults are supposed to, and we agreed upon a solution. And I mean, the agreement is basically that I had withheld funding from my other departments for the coming year to really tighten the belt quite a bit. And I'd asked other outside agencies to do the same thing, but we did it at least within my departments. And I'm using primarily those funds, and we're going to provide an extra $10 million from county funding to the schools, and the school system is going to pull another $15 million out of their fund balance, their savings from prior years, and we're going to apply that to education, and that's going to avoid any necessity for the schools have agreed that with that level there'd be no layoffs, there's no interference whatsoever with the quality of education in this coming year, and we're also agreed that we're going to work together in the coming year to better align our budgets, our budget process, and to identify savings in the school system and my own system to try to apply those towards education coming up next year. So it's really a matter of just sitting down and openly and honestly evaluating where things are and doing the right thing for the kids. Yeah, and that's what we've done.
You've been criticized, County Executive, by Sheriff Jeff Gaylor for, in his words, defunding the police. So let's take a listen quick to what he told us Monday, and then we'll give you a chance to respond.
Yeah, okay.
And now the county executive is not moving forward and has changed his stories countless times on what he's doing, why it's on hold, why he's not moving forward.
So Sheriff Gaylor says you're putting the brakes on plans for a new central precinct training academy. What is your response to him?
Yeah, look, for 8 years, I was a lead advocate for police across the state of Maryland, and I haven't changed. And it's just not credible for anybody to suggest that I'm defunding the police. In this year in our budget, our sheriff's deputies are getting a much larger fund increase than any other part of our government. Our deputies are receiving a COLA of at least 6.5%, possibly 8%. Last year, the sheriff received a budget increase of $12 million. That was a record. That record increase was twice of any increase that our sheriff's budget has ever been in the history of this county. And I told the sheriff that, look, I can't do that again. I can't give you another record $12 million increase. So look, I was shocked. I was quite frankly shocked when he came back with a proposed budget increase of $28 million, which is more than twice last year's record increase. And it's just that's not sustainable without a tax increase in Harford County. And public safety remains my #1 priority, but that doesn't mean that spending on that is unlimited. And just like our taxpayers, our government has to live within our means, our taxpayers' means. The training center, the sheriff's reference, I put that on hold like many capital projects across the county until I get a better feel of where spending's going, where spending needs are going. We're still wrestling with what does Kerwin mean now and in the future. I don't know, but we've got to be careful where we're going. The center, the training center, is currently located at Harford Community College. It's been operating for 20 years. They're still training there. They've successfully graduating classes. So clearly, there's we have the time to look at this and get this right. But to move forward with that particular project would add another $3 million per year to my police budget for ongoing for the next 20 years to pay for the debt on that particular center. So look, I want great policing. I fully support the men and women in blue and everything they do, and I stand behind them. But I can't spend more than the revenues we're bringing in. And so we're going to continue to support them. And I know the individual law enforcement officers are pretty happy with the COLA that we gave. And for them, they'd rather see money in their pocket than buildings. So we're going to keep moving forward. I'm happy to sit down with the sheriff anytime and try to adjust and iron out differences, reevaluate priorities as we move forward. And we'll continue to look at this project, moving forward for the summer once they get a better idea of what our revenues are, how are we doing. So, we're going to, just like I did with the Board of Education, we're willing to sit down and talk and be mature adults about all this. And we don't need to resort to name calling and that kind of nonsense. It really doesn't do anything to move us further ahead. And I don't think that's what the citizens or the taxpayers want us to do.
All right. Well, we have been speaking with Harford County Executive Bob Castley. We thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon.
Thank you.
Federal agents have joined the manhunt for an alleged member of the notorious Blood Street Gang who's wanted for murder.
Alexa Ashwell is live with a preview for tonight's Maryland's Most Wanted. Alexa?
Kai Maxine, investigators say leads have run dry for murder suspect, this man, Raymond Garfield Campbell. And now the U.S. Marshal Service has joined the search for him. Campbell has been on the run for more than 2.5 years. He's accused of murdering a man back in 2020. Campbell, investigators say, has a criminal history that dates back nearly 20 years with other arrests for attempted murder, armed robbery, assault, and drug distribution. A believed gang member with a history of violence, a fugitive, wanted for murder.
So this individual should be considered armed and dangerous. If you think about the situation, the individual's criminal history, and the fact that this individual is allegedly capable of committing cold-blooded murder, it is absolutely in the interest of public safety that we take him into custody.
Details of the murder, how investigators believe Campbell has been able to elude law enforcement, and where detectives believe he may be. Tonight on Maryland's Most Wanted. Plus, Kai Maxine, an update to the damsel in distress case. Back to you guys.
All right, Alexa, thank you. Well, some major retailers like Home Depot and Walmart are out with quarterly earnings this week, reporting mixed outlooks.
As national correspondent Atra El-Nashar reports, profit margins are also getting hit with the rise of organized retail crime.
It's a tough time to be a brick and mortar retailer. Competing with online shopping, less foot traffic since the pandemic, a labor shortage, all headwinds for running a profitable business.
See you again soon.
An uphill battle made worse by bad actors. This week, Target reporting sales were flat in the first quarter. CEO Brian Cornell telling shareholders they predict shrink, which is lost, stolen, or damaged product, will cost them an additional $500 million this year. He says organized retail crime is a major driver.
Unfortunately, it was very consistent with what we've been hearing from a pretty large number of our members.
The National Retail Federation's Chief Administrative Officer and General Counsel, Stephanie Martz, says national chains tend to be targeted more than small businesses. Police in Montgomery County, Maryland this week releasing this surveillance video of suspects leaving a CVS with bags full of skincare products.
Because they tend to be laid out similarly. And so, if you run a theft at one store, you can replicate that at other stores.
Smash and grab incidents often make the rounds on social media and the news, but Martz says violent episodes are just a small percentage of organized retail crimes.
There are a lot of very sophisticated efforts to steal very large amounts of product that don't involve human contact at all.
There have been some high-profile store closures in the past month, and some, like 2 Nordstrom locations in San Francisco, are tied to crime in the area. Accelerating a wave of closures also fueled by shrinking demand for in-person shopping.
Retailers notched a win in their fight against organized retail crime last year with the passage of the Informed Consumers Act. It's meant to increase transparency for third-party, high-volume sellers. The National Retail Federation tells me they're looking forward to seeing how effective it is in preventing thieves from selling their stolen goods online. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar.
How high is too high to drive? Next, we take you to a training session for police, learning how to spot impaired drivers as recreational marijuana becomes legal.
And if you have plans on commuting home, temperatures under mostly clear skies dropping through the 60s. Didn't even make it out of the 60s yet today. I'm going to let you know when things are going to warm up and if that's going to be in time for Preakness and if there could be some showers too. To my Weather Authority forecast.
Come July 1st, recreational marijuana will be legal in Maryland. And now law enforcement is working on ways to identify drivers who could be high on the road. Jeff Abel shows us how they're training.
It may look like a drug den, but for many marijuana users who gathered in a county office building today, this was a first. They smoked and inhaled until they could smoke no more, while an army of police officers looked on.
It's just one day. This is a one-day kind of an exposure class.
You can start.
I probably smoked about 1.5 grams so far.
It's the tip of your nose with the tip of your finger.
Curtis Carpenter uses marijuana to control his chronic pain, and today he joined several other longtime users in a so-called green lab, a place where police officers, many from Baltimore County, came to observe and examine the real impact of marijuana.
So what we need to understand as officers is there is a level that's going to impair, but there's also a level that's not impairing.
Beginning July 1st, Marylanders will be allowed to possess 1.5 ounces of cannabis, and many police officers are expecting a new round of impaired drivers. But determining the level of impairment is a tall task. Right now, a blood or urine test can provide officers with limited answers.
Which detects that at some point in time you may have used cannabis, but it doesn't detect impairment. And impairment is where the hazard is.
Keep your head straight and just follow the tip of the pen.
Officers also rely on field sobriety tests to determine whether a driver is too impaired to drive.
Just follow it all the way down.
After Curtis Carpenter smoked 1.5 grams of marijuana today, he felt confident about his ability to pass a sobriety test.
Do I feel safe to drive? Yes. Because I trust myself and I know my driving abilities.
But his high expectations fell flat when a Baltimore County drug enforcement officer told Carpenter he'd failed the test.
That it does obviously affect you.
Organizers say they hope today's Green Lab will help both officers and users better understand how high is too high, even if it can't accurately be measured.
I'm not 100% sure. We absolutely have an answer for it, and that's why we continue to do this.
Well, Jeff Abel was reporting on that story, and this training was sponsored by the Chesapeake Region Safety Council, which is also hoping to educate marijuana users who may be working in hazardous jobs, whether they are fit for it.
Man, some beautiful weather today. 68 degrees, mostly cloudy skies after a high of 69. A little bit of haze. I wouldn't be surprised if some of that haze on the Mile 1 Task Cam is kind of wafting across the northern United States from some of the Western Canada wildfires that are ongoing right now. We've had some very colorful sunrises and sunsets lately, courtesy of that. Winds out of the east-southeast at 7 miles an hour. Humidity 32% in our dew point. Super dry at 37 degrees. So it is dry. It is sunshine. It is comfortable. Lows in the 40s this morning, working now into the 60s to near 70 for highs. We've only made it to 69 once again over the airport. We may not make it into the 70s today with a 68 currently here in Baltimore. Some extra clouds trying to come in from the west and also the south, where you see temperature at 66 at Chestertown, Frederick at 72, 69 out at Gaithersburg. And the HT radar shows a whole bunch of rain that's down to our south, our southwest, and our southeast. And take a look now. It's finally making the turn on a dime and beginning to make the push back off to the north. Looks like eventually we're going to get in on some clouds potentially for tomorrow. And then maybe after that, this moisture could give us a little bit of rain. Probably light, probably scattered, but a little bit of rain chance at least as we head toward Preakness on Saturday. Otherwise, for now, clear, nice. I think for tonight, we'll see a gradual increase in clouds as that fair weather high pressure system begins to move away. Temperature is going to be settling down into the low and mid 50s by early tomorrow morning. By tomorrow midday, we're into the 60s and probably another day spent in the low to mid 70s for tomorrow afternoon. Then into Saturday, the clouds thicken even further. In this computer model, actually, the span is only going to go to just prior to when Preakness would happen there. But we see the extra clouds. There could be some spot showers that get into the forecast. There's not a ton, but about a 30% chance of light rain around for Saturday, and it's really going to be kind of few and far between. I think it's more so clouds than anything else. Tomorrow, some increase in clouds too, but no rain chance for Black-Eyed Susan Day. And then after that, sunshine comes back. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week, above average temperatures with high temperatures The mid-70s to near 80 and no chance of rain.
New digital scan shows more detailed views of the Titanic shipwreck, which is in the North Atlantic. A sea mapping company took more than 700,000 images to create a 3D model. Shoes, unopened champagne bottles, and other possessions can be seen surrounding the ship. The ship is 12,500 feet below water. That's equivalent to 2.3 miles. More than 1,500 people died in 1912 after the Titanic hit an iceberg and sank. Coming up at 5 o'clock, Baltimore doctors say violence has become normalized in the city. We continue our conversation with the people on the front lines. And it's the eve before Black-Eyed Susan Day. Next, Olivia Dance takes us to Pimlico with more on how the horses are feeling before the race. All eyes are on Baltimore as the 148th running of the Preakness Stakes gets underway tomorrow. Olivia Dance is at Pimlico and shows us the stars of the day, the horses.
I'm sitting in the grandstands here at Pimlico, and check this out. Look how close I am to the racetrack. This is about as close as you can get other than actually being on the track. Really a front row seat to all of the horses' workouts all day long. Now, there are 8 horses competing in this year's Preakness Stakes. Let's go ahead and pull up some video of those horses now. They are absolutely beautiful. National Treasure was the first horse to get to Pimlico on Saturday, and then on Sunday, Blazing Sevens got here, as well as Mage, who is the Kentucky Derby winner, and of course, a huge favorite. And Mage was also out here on the track earlier doing some morning workouts. Now, we spoke with one of Mage's owners who tells me he is confident that Mage will do well on Saturday.
I'm 100% confident, yeah. I mean, the weather concerns me. You know, the chance of rain. He's never run on a wet track. He did get to train a little bit on it at Churchill Downs over the last week or so before he shipped here. So, He's been on a wet surface, but not in a race.
Mage is the only horse running in Preakness that was also in the Kentucky Derby. The other horses racing include Chase the Chaos, Coffee with Chris, Red Route 1, Perform, First Mission, Blazing Sevens, and National Treasure. Now all the horses have arrived here at Pimlico, and people have been stopping by the grandstands all day to watch the horses' workouts, and you can just tell that everyone is so excited for the big weekend ahead. But for now, reporting at Pimlico, I'm Olivia Dance, Fox 45 News.
And you have another opportunity to get free tickets from Fox 45 Mornings team. Each hour from 5 a.m. until 10 a.m., one lucky winner will get 4 all-day general admission passes to the race. That includes the Preakness Live concert lineup headlined by Bruno Mars. Now, if you celebrate the Preakness Stakes this year, make sure to send us a picture or video from Pimlico or your at-home Preakness celebrations. Go to foxbaltimore.com/chime in to send those pictures. You can also scan the QR code on your screen.
Well, all right, let's investigate that Preakness forecast for tomorrow. Black-eyed Susan Day. Notice some extra clouds, but rain stays away. Temperatures in the 70s. Now, Saturday, watching a system out to the west and another coastal system to the east as they kind of try to come together. The one out to the west, that's the main impact for us, is going to generally kind of fall apart. So there could be a sprinkle or a light shower for post time at 6:50 for the big race. But it's not going to be anything like any of these extremes that we've seen here. Look at this. Back in 2022, it was 95 degrees. And the past 5 Preakness Stakes, we had some warm, we had some cool, we had some rain. And around here, again, there could be a sprinkle or a light shower. But overall, ho-hum, temperatures in the 60s and the 70s.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5, 8 months after an E. coli outbreak in the city, residents still don't trust the drinking water, as the EPA says Baltimore is falling short in key standards. And the legislative session ended in Annapolis with little progress on youth violence, according to critics. We pressed the governor on whether a special session is needed.
A trauma doctor says the tragedies are 100% preventable, hearing the frustrations from those saving lives on the front lines of the youth crime crisis.
Is a special session warranted in Annapolis? Fox 45 News asked Governor Wes Moore what he's doing to protect kids as the youth violence continues.
And the EPA says the city did not take the right steps to protect citizens, where city leaders are falling short when it comes to providing safe drinking water.
Live From WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
Breaking tonight, the Maryland State Superintendent has been approved. Dr. Miriam Yarbrough is the new superintendent of Baltimore County Schools. Yarbrough vowed to make the school system one of the best in the state after she was announced as the county's choice. Coming up at 5:30, we take a deeper look into the selection process surrounding the superintendent and why some say the public was left out.
A youth crime crisis continues to plague Baltimore. 10 juveniles have been killed this year in the city. That's more than a 50% increase over this time last year. And nearly 40 children have been shot and survived.
Now, these numbers would be even higher if it weren't for the talented shock trauma doctors who are saving young children's lives. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Maxine Stryker. Tonight, we continue our conversation with those doctors on the front lines of the youth crime crisis. For children growing up in Baltimore City,
at the top stories we're following from the
carrying illegal firearms in our
violence can be a part of everyday life.
Living in a city where violence is rampant is considered an adverse childhood experience.
This year, as juvenile violence spikes in the city, no one is more intimately familiar with the pain and suffering of children than those on the front lines. Dr. Thomas Scalea, Chief of Shock Trauma, Dr. Stephen Zinn, Director of the University of Maryland Children's Hospital, and Dr. Rebecca Carter, a leading pediatrician at the University of Maryland Medical Center, sitting down with us for an honest conversation.
Last year you said that you and your staff were feeling beaten down. Are you still feeling that way?
Absolutely. It's just so discouraging, the violence in general. You know, you can fix distracted driving and all of those things, and there will still be vehicular crashes because there's human error, there's weather, there's all of those things. But I don't know where it's written down that you have to pick up a gun and shoot somebody. That doesn't have to be. And so this is, as far as I'm concerned, these are 100% preventable injuries.
Well, I think we haven't seen a change, but I think what's more disturbing is the number of kids that are either dying as a result of gunshot or being injured as a result of a gunshot.
This year, 10 children have been killed in Baltimore City.
Why do you think Baltimore children feel that violence is often the answer?
I think that it really speaks to the normalization of violence in the city. And this is maybe a little off topic, but what other city has the major newspaper report homicides every week? I've never, when I got here, I said, this really? If you look at the homicides, the day that Freddie Gray died, and they've never come back down.
With bloodshed ingrained into the fabric of Baltimore, the doctors agree everyone has an obligation to make a difference in this fight.
This isn't a political fight. It's not a medical fight or set of issues. It's about the health of the public in Baltimore, and this is a huge problem for those people, for the citizens of the city, and the conversations need to be driven with that framework.
Well, another important topic we discussed with the doctors was their part in a national campaign, It Doesn't Kill to Ask. That campaign focusing on destigmatizing the conversation about guns and their safe storage.
We have a lot of hesitancy about asking about where guns are stored, how they're stored, how do we keep them out of the hands of young adults and certainly out of children. And I think this is a conversation that everybody should be a lot more open to having in the coming weeks and months if we're going to start to make a difference.
To see my full 30-minute interview with Drs. Carter, Scalea, and Zinn, just point your phone's camera right now at that QR code on your screen or go to our webpage at foxbaltimore.com.
Next week, the Baltimore City Council will hold a hearing on the youth curfew. Mayor Brandon Scott wants to enforce a summer curfew to reduce the number of young people becoming both victims and suspects in crimes. And in Annapolis, lawmakers have wrapped up their work for the year without taking action on bills to prevent youth violence. Tonight, Rebecca Pryor is asking the governor if lawmakers should return for a special session to address the crisis. Rebecca?
Well, as this crisis remains front and center for our hospital workers, we're still waiting for the governor to address their concerns. I reached out to his office today asking what new solutions can he offer. Instead, they sent us an old press release from earlier this week.
Behind the doors of the University of Maryland Shock Trauma Center, every life struck by gun violence hits home.
It's just part of every day of our lives, and it's not a very good part of every day of our lives.
And this year, the victims are getting younger. So far, at least 10 Baltimore City teens have been shot and killed, and dozens more injured.
The number has to be less. It just has to be.
In an exclusive interview with Fox 45, the doctors on the front lines of juvenile crime putting out a call to action, with lawmakers doing little to combat the crisis this session. The state legislature typically meets for about 3 months each year. However, the governor holds the power to call lawmakers back at any time for a special session. That power currently at play in Tennessee. Governor Bill Lee calling a special session to address gun reform a month after a mass shooting at a Nashville school. And in Washington, Governor Jay Inslee doing the same to address drug abuse. But back in Maryland,
we have an epidemic.
Governor Wes Moore acknowledging the issue, but unable to offer direct answers. Today, Fox 45 sending questions to the governor's office asking, what is your response to the shock trauma doctor's concerns? Will you call a special session to address juvenile violence? And if not, what is your message to families who have lost children to gun violence this year? His response, a press release sent out earlier this week with his remarks from a recent bill signing event. Governor Moore saying, quote, by this time tomorrow, another 2 Marylanders will have died from gun violence based on current trends. Many of these victims will likely be children. He goes on to say, when tragedy strikes and we do nothing, we know we are contending with more than a gun violence issue. We are contending with a world that has given up, and that's how progress dies.
Why aren't you doing something?
But political analyst John Deedy flipping that back on the governor.
They need to take stronger action in order to deal with this problem.
Deedy arguing the lack of progress stems from Governor Moore and Maryland lawmakers' lack of action.
Whether it is finding a way to get more of these guns off the streets or tougher penalties to deal with this type of thing, but they definitely need to get more involved in this than to wait another 9 months before another session comes.
And making this issue especially urgent, summer is just around the corner, and we know here in Baltimore, due to years past those crime trends, we know that as the weather warms up, violence tends to go up too. Reporting live in Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. This brings us to our question of the day. Should there be a special legislative session in Annapolis to tackle the juvenile crime crisis? So far, 94% of those who voted say yes. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
The city's crime crisis continued last night with 2 more shootings. Late Wednesday, an 18-year-old and 21-year-old were shot in North Baltimore. The 2 victims took themselves to the hospital around 11 o'clock. Police say they were shot on Paul Mall Road near West Cold Spring Lane. Now, according to city police, 225 people have been shot and survived in Baltimore in 2023. That's 28 fewer than this time last year. 103 people have been shot and killed. Even with murders and non-fatal shootings down from this point last year, when you compare numbers from the past 8 years, Baltimore could again see 300 people killed in 2023.
It is a real hazard, and we need to straighten this thing out right away. And there's no reason why it should have taken this long.
A state report out tonight sheds more light on where the city is falling short on water safety. Mackenzie Frost continues Fox 45's relentless coverage on this issue and has concerns from community members.
The construction around Lake Ashburton continues as the city continues installing drinking water tanks buried underground. The $137 million plan scheduled to wrap up in winter of 2022, all to comply with the federal safe drinking water laws. But that plan delayed. A similar project underway here at Druid Hill Park, where outdated signs provide timeline projections for completion. The Environmental Protection Agency issuing this order to the city for violating federal law.
Well, I don't think it's been going very well.
The letter outlining blown deadlines for years. Lawrence Bell, former city council president,
We're very concerned about it. We don't know why it's taking so long.
has been active in the community conversation for both projects.
Well, I think there's poor management on all levels.
The projects come with other upgrades to the surrounding parks too, which Bell says could be part of the problem.
There are people who exploited the requirements by EPA to do a lot of other things, and that may be one of the reasons why this thing is taking so long.
The EPA orders the city to finish the tank projects by the end of this year, also ordering the city to find a lab to complete water testing for Giardia and other parasites until drinking water tanks are online. This project delay and renewed focus on drinking water testing isn't the first time that Baltimore City has faced questions surrounding safe drinking water. 8 months ago, there was an E. coli outbreak taking place right here in front of this fire station, leading to thousands of residents who were unable to drink their water.
I was sitting right in the doorway looking at it, and they didn't do anything for about 4 or 5 hours.
This man lives near the fire station in West Baltimore, but doesn't want to show his face. He remembers the E. coli outbreak and the subsequent botched communication from the city. 8 months later, he still doesn't trust the city's water.
I buy bottled water and I filter my water.
The water in West Baltimore rendered unsafe last Labor Day weekend.
I got it. I'll put it right up there. You know what, okay. How you doing? How you doing, buddy?
The city opening water distribution sites for days. Despite city leaders maintaining they followed the law when it comes to notifying the public fast enough,
DPW has been in total compliance with EPA and MDE guidelines regarding notifications.
Communications seem to be bungled. How do you plan to make sure that the community sees that someone is held accountable for this?
So again, Mackenzie, there was no misbundling of communications.
What you're saying is you're accusing DPW of ignoring what MDE said.
they did, according to the emails. A Fox 45 News investigation revealing the city waited to tell the impacted community their water may not be safe to drink. And months later, Fox 45 News uncovering a memo the Maryland Department of Environment sent to city leaders confirming that violation. Now the EPA giving the city a step-by-step plan to come into compliance. DPW telling Fox 45 News the pandemic and supply chain issues caused many of the delays, and both projects should begin functional and operational use by December 30th, 2023, barring unforeseen delays. If that doesn't happen, Bell says the federal government should not be lenient.
I think they need to come down hard on the city hierarchy.
The mayor's office ignoring questions for 2 days about the latest order from the EPA. Meanwhile, the city ordered to notify the public of these latest violations. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Republican lawmakers saying it's on the city to protect drivers. The pushback against a city lawsuit blaming manufacturers for car thefts.
Whistleblowers say the FBI was trying to silence them. The latest from hearings on Capitol Hill.
And the Kentucky Derby winner and Preakness favorite has some Maryland connections, looking into what horses running this weekend have local ties.
And if you want to spend some of this beautiful evening grilling outside, looks good. Temperatures falling through the 60s with an ample amount of sunshine, giving way to a couple increasing clouds, which eventually could lead to some rain by Preakness on Saturday. I'm tracking it on the Future Scan coming up hour by hour. My Weather Authority forecast.
Here's a live look right now at Capitol Hill, where whistleblowers testify before Congress. They say the FBI retaliated against them. Republican Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio leads the subcommittee on the select weaponization of the federal government that held the hearings today. He alleges the agent's stories prove the FBI targets pro-life supporters and parents attending school board meetings, along with those who support Republican ideals.
To shut down differing viewpoints is the end of any analytical or investigative body. It sends a chilling effect across the workforce and does not allow for intellectual freedom, which is vital to any investigative body seeking out the truth.
Former FBI operations specialist Marcus Allen says the agency retaliated against him for questioning what happened during the January 6th riots, while the FBI says his security clearances were revoked for expressing sympathy for rioters and that he failed to identify publicly available information while investigating a rioter. You know, this year Maryland has some hometown ties on race day.
Rocco DeSangro live at Pimlico with the details. Hey, Rocco.
Kai, Maxine, what's going on? It's a big week, the biggest week of the year here at Pimlico, and for good reason. You can see the final preparations going down here at this race course. You got gardeners working on flowers. You got the track being dragged right now. This place is going to be in pristine condition come Friday and Saturday. Why, you ask? Friday marks the Black-Eyed Susan Stakes featuring the 3-year-old fillies. And then on Saturday, it's the big one, Preakness 148. This year's Preakness features a few horses with Maryland ties. You guys talked about it. You have Coffee with Chris, who's based out of Laurel, and that was the final horse to arrive on the big day. And unlike last year, the Kentucky Derby winner will be running in the Preakness. That's Mage, a horse who was actually purchased at an auction in Timonium. And although it was a quick 2-week turnaround in between races, Mage is certainly ready to roll.
This is what we dream of. No the recognition, no like getting famous, no about that. It's about winning the race. Now that we have won it, of course, we understand that with that kind of success, there's all stuff coming together with that. Every horse is going to have a decent shot to, and hopefully the best wins.
Listen, the grandstands, they're empty right now. We kind of talked about it. Call it the calm before the storm, but they are hoping here at Pimlico that it does not storm. But you got 2 big races coming your way. If Mage does win the Preakness, he'll be the first horse since 2018. That was Triple Crown winner Justify to win both the Preakness and the Kentucky Derby. We'll just have to wait and see. Preakness 148, it is coming. 6:50 is that post time. For now, live at Pimlico, Rocco DeSangro for Sports Unlimited.
All right, Rocco, thank you. Well, Preakness weekend events officially get underway tomorrow with the Black-Eyed Susan Stakes. Today, a special blanket is being made for tomorrow's winner. Fox 45 photojournalist Morgan Pravado shows us how.
It's a sea of yellow and black.
The flowers are so big this year.
It's so beautiful. This is for the fillies race.
For the winner of the race, you know, for the winner of the Black-Eyed Susan.
I really think we have a beautiful blanket.
Nah, y'all be doing this all day, ain't you? All day long.
First off, each flower is individually put on a metal stick called a flock wire. This is a black matting. We stick the wire through the black matting. We bend it and then bend it again and put it up so we can lock it into place so it doesn't fall out. And you can see how each one's individually wired. Then we just keep doing this over and over and over.
I'd probably do 4,000.
I couldn't do it by myself. I think my fingers would fall off.
Not malfunctioned.
All the women that help me are all giant florists. They come from other stores to come help me make it. Baltimore's got the best. It's yellow and black together, so it has more character and more personality. Ours is the prettiest. All over the world. Well, we don't use Black-Eyed Susans because they're not available yet.
Black-Eyed Susans don't come out really until later in the season. What are they? Daisies?
We use Viking palms, which is actually better. They look exactly like it, except that Black-Eyed Susans only have 13 petals, where the Viking palms have a lot more petals. So we don't need as many because it takes up more space on the blanket. We had someone that was very mad that we didn't use them. I was like, I can't get them, I'm sorry.
They have to stick with the tradition, however they can do it.
I'm touching a piece of history when I make that. I get goosebumps when I talk about it. It's really kind of cool. It's seen all over the world, so it's pride in our city.
Well, what a great package there by Morgan Privado. You have one more day to win free tickets from the Fox 45 morning team each hour from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. Tomorrow, one lucky winner will get 4 all-day general admission passes, including the Preakness Live concert lineup, headlined by Bruno Mars.
Yeah, that's super neat. And some of the sunshine helping to grow some of those flowers this year. And you can see here, as we're talking about Preakness, taking a look at Preaknesses of the past. The hottest Preakness, 98 degrees back in 1962. Not going to be like that, nor will it be the coolest with highs only in the 50s. That was back in 2003, 1947. We had a low of 39. And the wettest, that's the one you really don't want, 1.3 inches of rain fell one of those Preaknesses. That will not be the case either. But we're going to have a mix of some of that. Near average temperatures, and there is some risk of showers. We'll get into that in a second. Toyota Nation Harbor Skycam right now. Mostly cloudy skies, 70 winds, gusty out of the east and southeast at about 15 miles an hour, eventually bringing in some moisture. For now, it's still pretty dry with 70 in Baltimore, 68 at Cockeysville, and up 95 to Bel Air. Laurel at 69, near 70 across the eastern shore. And statewide hitting highs generally in the 60s to near 70. We did amble up to 70 degrees here in Baltimore finally, but barely, and that's about 5 degrees below average. Look at all this rain down to the south. This will continue to gradually, as it has been now, turn around and start moving back northbound. If you remember a couple of days ago, we had some clouds and some sprinkles with a cold front coming through. That's why it's gotten so nice around here. Well, now that front's diminished, and the moisture with it is eventually getting picked up on those southerly winds and kind of thrown back at us. So this clear, nice weather we've been with is going to start giving way. And notice here as we take a look at the next weather maker coming in, starting to move in from the coast and from the west, kind of collapsing on us as we work into Saturday. But the good news is this western system looks like it's transferring energy to this coastal system, which leads us right in the middle. So some of the moisture may kind of jump over us. We'll have some clouds, maybe a light shower, but it does not look like anything heavy. And you'll see what I mean on the future scan. Take a look. The clouds begin to increase ahead of all this into tonight, early tomorrow morning. During the day tomorrow, some extra clouds for Black-Eyed Susan Day. Temperatures in the mid-60s and low to mid-70s. And then there on Saturday, there are the systems. There's one coming in up the coast, and then the other one that's out to the west. But notice they never really fully gel over us. The moisture just kind of increases to the east, and the moisture out to the west will diminish. So we'll say about a 30% chance of a spot shower here for post-tide Preakness on Saturday. Good-looking day for tomorrow, high 74, and after that, it's dry. Highs near 80 through the end of the weekend and into next week.
A key choice made behind closed doors. Project Baltimore investigates what went into the decision to name a new superintendent in Baltimore County and why the public feels left out. A debt crisis may be averted. The progress from Capitol Hill tonight. Making headlines on Capitol Hill, congressional lawmakers continuing those negotiations on a debt deal. Tonight, for the first time, some Republican leaders are voicing optimism that an agreement will be reached. President Biden's team continued negotiations with the Republican leaders while the president met allies in Asia. The president in Japan to attend the G7 summit after saying debt talks were stalling just days ago. The House Speaker now saying they're making progress.
Look, we're not there. We haven't agreed to anything yet, but I see the path that we could come to an agreement. And I think we have a structure now, and everybody's working hard. And I mean, we're working 2 or 3 times a day, then going back, getting more numbers.
Meanwhile, some Democrats are circulating a letter urging President Biden to bypass Congress by using the 14th Amendment in order to avoid Republican spending cuts. Federal agents hunting for a member of a notorious Maryland gang, the latest on the search in Maryland's most wanted. The public had no say in who would be leading their kids' education, according to some, looking into a lack of transparency surrounding Baltimore County's decision on its next superintendent.
Federal agents have joined the manhunt for an alleged member of the notorious Blood Street gang who is wanted for murder.
Alexa Ashwell is live with a preview for tonight's Maryland's Most Wanted.
Kai Maxine, investigators say leads have run dry for murder suspect Raymond Campbell. And now
So this individual should be considered armed and dangerous. If you think about the situation, the individual's criminal history, and the fact that this individual is allegedly capable of committing cold-blooded murder, it is absolutely in the interest of public safety that we take him to custody.
All right, we're having some issues there with Alexa Shapa. She will have her story tonight at 10:45. The controversy surrounding the state's new gun control law, SB 1, continues tonight. The governor Tuesday signing a bill limiting where legal gun owners can carry their weapons, banning them from schools, government buildings, and many more public spaces. Opponents of the bill, they say it strips them of their constitutional rights. Eurypsy Morgan, spokesperson for the community group Peace, voicing concerns while speaking to our morning team, saying the plan takes the focus off of key issues in the city.
Here in Maryland, when you see the governor talking about this bill and he talks about the crime in Maryland, we all know what he's really talking about. The majority of violent crimes are committed in Baltimore City, and particularly in neighborhoods that need our help most. And so when you have the governor coming out and talking about a bill like this and talking about Maryland as a whole, it takes the focus away from Baltimore City, which is where it really needs to be.
Well, the law is supposed to go into effect on July 1st, but it's already facing some legal challenges.
A group of conservative state delegates says Baltimore City leaders are not doing enough to stop a recent spike in car thefts. The lawmakers signed a letter to the mayor criticizing the city's decision to join a lawsuit against Kia and Hyundai. In that letter, the lawmakers call for the mayor, Baltimore police, and local prosecutors to increase clearance rates in stolen car cases and hand down severe punishments to those who are stealing cars rather than blame the car manufacturers.
Meanwhile, the mayor's lawsuit points out the fact that 41% of thefts can be traced back to just those two brands, showing they're too easy to steal. His legal action comes as the state attorney general, Anthony Brown, is also joining a group of attorneys general demanding a recall on Kias and Hyundais. Well, for years now, local leaders, they've been promising improvements to Pimlico's race course, but those improvements really have yet to materialize. Fox 45's Megan Gillen talks with a taxpayer advocate about what he thinks should happen.
Taking you out to Pimlico here, where visitors from all around the world are racing to as the city prepares for the 148th running of the Preakness Stakes on Saturday. But behind the green grass and the perfectly manicured racetrack is a complex in dire need of repair, with no timeline on when that might happen, despite $375 million being allocated for renovation. David Williams with the Taxpayers Protection Alliance weighing in on why there hasn't been any progress.
There are a lot of issues and problems with this. The first is that you have two racetracks, right? You have Laurel Park and you have Pimlico, and then both are in need of repairs. And what happened was 3 years ago, as you mentioned, $375 million was agreed upon to renovate these two facilities. That price tag has gone up to $700 million. Wow. And now they're trying to figure out which racetrack they're going to fix first or really fix at all.
Where could that extra money come from? Are we looking at taxpayer dollars for this?
No, we don't have to. And that's the crazy thing, is that right now these two racetracks receive money from gambling, and really it's the slot machines. But why not have gaming at the racetrack? Why not have card games? Why not, table games? Actually put slot machines into these racetracks and have a casino. Have a casino sponsor the racetrack, because the taxpayers should not be footing the bill.
Williams went on to say that he worries all the attention will go to Pimlico, and while it has the Preakness, it doesn't see the day-to-day racing that Laurel does. You can see this part of the interview on foxbaltimore.com. I'm Megan Gillen, Fox 45 News.
Breaking tonight, the state school superintendent has approved the Baltimore County School Board's choice to lead the school system, but the public really had no direct say in the matter, according to some.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, the school board chose Dr. Miriam Yarbrough behind closed doors.
I remember when Baltimore County Public Schools, we were at the top of the state.
On July 1st, Dr. Miriam Yarbrough is set to take over as the new superintendent of Baltimore County Public Schools, the largest district in our region, with 111,000 students.
It is my intention to work together with you, the community.
Yarbrough began her career as a Baltimore County teacher in 1996 and later became a principal in Montgomery County before returning to BCPS in 2020. She's currently deputy superintendent to Dr. Darrell Williams, who after a turbulent 4 years is leaving on June 30th. His replacement was announced by the school board Tuesday night.
Congratulations on your appointment, Dr. Yarbrough.
But in the past decade, the superintendents chosen by the board haven't worked out too well. Current superintendent Dr. Williams is leaving after 4 years. His first contract was his only contract. Prior to Williams, there was interim superintendent Verlita White. She was found to have violated ethics rules regarding her finances. Before White, there was Dallas Dance, who served 4 months in jail for lying on his financial disclosure forms.
And now the board has selected Dr. Yarbrough, who just a few weeks ago was mentioned in a wrongful termination lawsuit that was filed by the district's former chief human resources officer. This has some questioning the process. When a new superintendent is chosen by the school board, it's done in secret. The finalists' names are not made public by the board, and the final vote is held in a closed meeting.
I would love for the public to be more involved. BCPS has been less than transparent with parents for a very long time.
Amy Adams is president of the Baltimore County Parent Coalition.
I don't know why we can't know the resumes of the people that are going to lead our very diverse and very challenged school system.
In announcing the new superintendent, the board issued a press release thanking stakeholders for participating and providing insights throughout the process, saying this outcome would not have been possible without the active participation of the community. But Adams says the public was invited to fill out surveys and attend meetings with a recruitment company conducting the search.
That's right.
Parents were never able to meet the finalists.
What our system now needs is stability and leadership, and this is kind of the opposite of that. There's just a lot of questions. It felt very rushed.
Lily Rowe, a former Baltimore County School Board member, supports keeping candidate names private.
You would have people who wouldn't apply because they wouldn't want their current employer to know that they're looking for another job.
But other school systems in Maryland don't seem to agree. Last year, Wycomico and Washington counties hired new superintendents. Both districts publicly announced the finalists prior to the board voting. Harford County schools released a list of finalists in 2018.
The Board of Education are looking forward to working with you and supporting you throughout your tenure as superintendent of BCPS.
The Baltimore County School Board says it's planning to hold a series of public meetings where the community can meet Dr. Yarbrough before she begins a new job. But the decision has already been made. She's set to be the next superintendent. The question now is whether she will be more transparent than her predecessor.
And as far as the media is concerned, you will make yourself available.
I will make myself available.
In 4 years, Dr. Williams agreed to only one interview with Project Baltimore, his first day on the job. So we sent an email asking if Dr. Yarbrough will make herself available to the media and when the public will see her plan to improve the school system. In a short statement, BCPS said it will release Dr. Yarbrough's plan when it's complete. As far as interviews, BCPS said it'll keep us posted.
We just want what's best for the children. Our kids are in these systems. We depend on these schools. We want our kids to be educated well, to be effective grown-up adults, and we want our teachers to be dedicated, and we want their morale to be really high. And it just doesn't feel that way right now.